खानी डाँडा त नजिकै हो।
Just been told whilst we're sat here that the 8:30 flight and the 9:30 flight have been cancelled. As you can see, we have been waiting here from 9:30. It's now 3, and they have now said that due to the bad weather, namely there is a massive cloud over one of the mountains that we're due to fly over, it's no longer safe to fly and land at Lukla. We were given the option of paying another $1,500. That's $500 for Stuart, $500 for me and for our Sherpa, and then sharing with another 3 people to go by helicopter. So that's what we're going to do.
So we picked up our boarding cards and headed through departures. It was all a bit chaotic, but we soon realised there was a snag. There's an old man that you can just about make out in the video, just in front of me. Just here. He was going home with his wife so she could spend her last days at home. Allowing the family some privacy, we sat in the back with our Sherpa and the luggage as we headed out along the runway. It's fair to say that Kathmandu Airport always throws up the odd surprises, including this old Saab rusting away.
Our heli is not landed yet. I think it's coming.
Is it?
Yeah, because here I can't see the.
No, it's too climbing.
The heli effect.
Eventually, our helicopter arrived, but we were in for a shock. We weren't going to Lukla. Listen very carefully to the words of the pilot filing his flight plan to the air traffic control at Kathmandu.
Hani Danda area, we have POP07.
You can hear the pilot saying that we are flying to the Kanidara area, and the piece of paper in his hand is the manual coordinates of the lady's house that we're going to. We're blissfully unaware at this stage of our final destination, and the helicopter engine soon starts up, and Lynn decides that, well, she wants to be co-pilot for the day and puts on the headphones. After a few final checks, we're soon heading off over the outskirts of Kathmandu towards what we think is going to be Lukla. We're soon leaving the bright sunshine of the Kathmandu Valley and heading up into the mountains. As you can see, the weather gradually begins to worsen. Despite the worsening weather, we're actually feeling in a happy mood. Well, at least one of us was. Visibility was getting worse and the weather was closing in. The pilot asked Lynn to hand over her headphones to the lady's daughter so that she can give some final directions to the lady's house high up in the hills. This was when the flying began to get a little bit interesting. Little did we know that we were about to get a flyover of the hotel where we were about to stay the night. To the left you can see the runway of Kanidara airfield, and there's a little blue shack right at the end, just about make it out. That's where we were going to stay the night. But as we flew on, we approached the lady's house. Unfortunately, the house was in the top of this cloud. So much as we wanted to, there was no way in which we could reach it. In fact, her house was to stay tantalisingly up in the clouds for some time. We circled for about a quarter of an hour. Flying low over the hills and looking for a suitable place to land. All the time it's gradually getting darker. We followed quite a long period of time where we were looking for a landing spot lower down the hill from the lady's house. There were no obvious spots. It was mostly trees, mountainside and rice paddy. It certainly wasn't Lukla. At this point I stopped filming for a while because the pilot clearly needed to concentrate. We were about to get a glimpse of our landing site, just below the little white house that you can see up on the hillside above the road. The two young lads from the village, frantically gesturing at the helicopter, suggesting possible landing sites. None of them, to be honest, looked that promising. But we were certainly going to land. Here was the little house, and here was our landing site. What I'd not realised was that one of the rice paddies was slightly wider than the others, and this was the landing site selected by the pilot. can now see is how close the nose of the helicopter gets to the wall of the rice paddy. We'd landed.
अब तपाईहरुको मान्छेलाई बोलाउनुस् है अनि उ गर्नुपर्छ
It's not meant to be a lawnmower, I think is the thing.
अब है यसो गर्नु न तपाई
Pilot
एकछिन
took off his
निक्लेर
shoes and socks,
तपाईहरुको हो
and we were reminded of the reason why we were here. The local villagers had come to help the old lady and her husband back to their house. It's about a 30-minute walk up the hill, and the villagers gave them a piggyback through the paddy field. It's
Our first helicopter ride.
our first helicopter ride, and it's now getting dark, and we're about 6 inches deep in a paddy field, and that's somebody's mobile phone going. I'm not sure it's mine. No, no, it's the pilot's. Probably asking where he is. As you can tell by the propeller, we turned into a lawnmower, but all is well. But before we could take off, one of the villagers had to help bash down the rice paddy and a few stray soybean plants.
भइसक्यो भ्याउँदैन खानी डाँडा त 2 मिनेट 3 मिनेटको फ्लाइट हो के म यहाँ टाइम हेरेर म उडेर खानी डाँडा गएर बस्छु अनि ल हुन्छ ल म गएँ त्यसबे ल भाइ ए भाइ भ्याउँछ उ त्यो सिमी छ नि हो त्यसलाई नि मात्र गर्दै हुन्छ त्यो घुम्दाखेरि त्यता नछुनी गर्देऊ न है त्यति गर्देऊ न ल पैसालाई कुर्नु पनि भयो पैसालाई कहाँ कुर्छन् पैसा त अब स्टार्ट गर्नु आयो भने आए नत्र पैसा मेरो त्यो त मेरो सरकारको विषय नै होइन मेरो त उडाउने हो ठाउँमा लाने हो तै पनि हेल्प त गर्नु पर्यो नि भाइ पुग्छ भाइ त्यता नगर पुग्छ अब ल थ्यांक यू भेरी मच है भाइ ल अब म स्टार्ट गर्छु है भाइ
Gardening work over, we're soon ready to take off.
हजुर पैसा कहाँबाट लिएर यहाँ आइसक्नु भएको हो आइसक्नु भए भए लिएर जाने नत्र म लागिहाल्ने
सिट बेल्ट लगाऊ हैन
सिट बेल्ट लगाऊ
Yeah.
That was some first helicopter ride.
This was your first?
Yes.
Yeah. We keep circling, maybe you get scared, right? Yeah, everyone will.
No, I was just transfixed. I couldn't believe it.
No, it's operations here is like this, what to do. Okay, we need to go now. We cannot make it to Lukla, weather is also very bad. We'll sit in the any one airport close by and let's see for the accommodation. Now we need to hurry. Huh?
Having dropped the bombshell that we were not going to Lukla, and the fact that we'd have to try and find some accommodation at a quote nearby airport, we started the preparations to take off. By this time, as you can tell, it had got really dark. Eventually, we could just about make out, using the helicopter lights, the end of the runway at Canidara. The runway is used 3 times a week. mostly for fixed-wing aircraft, and the occasional helicopter dropping in. It was closed at the time, but it was a welcome sight. But the question was, where were we going to stay? As you can tell, we've arrived at somewhere in the Himalaya. It's dark. Here's the helicopter. We're having to stay here overnight. We've got no idea whether there's any accommodation. We certainly haven't booked any. We weren't planning to be here. Luckily, the very ill lady where we landed in the paddy field is safe and well, and she's got about 30 minutes being carried to her home, so that's all that matters. And here are a few of the local children, whether you can see them. And there's the control tower. So anyway, I'm not sure whether we got any Wi-Fi or hot towels, but there we go.
Studying to be a guide, or are you at school at the moment?
School.
School.
I study in draft now. My father and mother are living here.
Yeah.
And I am here to celebrate Basan Festival.
The voice in the dark belonged to the young man in the picture. That's his sister with him. This is where he brought us. We were soon getting a cookery lesson on how to cook dal bhat, and ate with the family who, in typical Nepali tradition, fed us first. It was a strange first night in the Himalayas. This was not to be the best room that we were likely to stay in. In fact, it was all pretty basic. The bed was simply a wooden slab with a sheet and a blanket over it. There was certainly no mattress, no hot and cold running water, light coming in through the walls. To be honest, we didn't sleep much, or at all, until things looked just a little bit better in the morning, but not much.
View from our bedroom.
That's the washing facilities, and this is before the local shop opened in the morning. We stayed in the upstairs. Gradually, things came to life, and children started to arrive to go to the local school. Our pilot had said to be up at 6 for an early start, but there was one problem: fog. So we waited and waited and waited and waited.
Estamos